So I made a beginner guide like over 3 years ago now, covering everything that new players need to know in Valorant, and holy crap, I cannot believe that we are almost 5 years into Valorant's life now. We have a whole new tutorial, tons of new settings, new agents, and new guns even. It is crazy to think about, so I figured it's time that we updated our beginner guide. We've got a lot of new stuff to cover, so I'm going to walk you through literally the moment that you boot up the game for the first time, going all the way to your first competitive match. Now, the thing with most beginner guides is that a lot of them literally just assume that you have a certain level of knowledge within the game. It's almost impossible for these top players to teach brand new players the game because they're so detached from what an actual new player looks like. They'll tell you things like you need to do an hour of aim training a day or drink a gallon of milk before each play session. That's why we wanted to do something different though. We partnered up with actual new players and worked with them to create a guide that actually speaks your language. Because sometimes you just need somebody that knows exactly what it's like to be in your shoes. And while this video is everything that you'll need to get started, our brand new beginner course over on our site really continues the journey to take those same concepts taught by pros and turn them into bite-sized pieces that you'll actually understand from day one. No confusing terms, no assuming that you just know things, just practical advice that you can use for your very first game. Which also works as the perfect entry point to all of our other amazing content on the site, giving you a clear path to improve as you rapidly become more comfortable in the game. Now there's the reason that SkillCapped has become the only premium instructional resource in the scene. We invest and we believe in our content. So much so that we even back it up with 2 guarantees. First, we give you 2 full weeks to explore all of the things that we have to offer, and if it's not for you, you get a full refund, no questions asked. Our second guarantee is that you will climb at least 5 divisions, or again, you get every single penny back, no questions asked. You got everything to gain, nothing to lose. Get started by using that beginner discount link in the description below. Anyway though, let's get back into the video. Now, when you start the tutorial, it is pretty straightforward. It will walk you through all of the things that you need to know. Pick up your classic, shoot the target, grab a vandal, shoot the target. Now, there's a couple things in the tutorial that they're not going to walk you through that you probably want to adjust. For starters, we're going to want to take a look at your crosshair settings. Now, the starting crosshair is pretty atrocious. We're just going to have you change your settings to something more specific. There are 2 ways that you can do this. You can import this crosshair code that's linked in the description by clicking the import button on your screen and copy pasting the code in. Or you could adjust your own settings by going down to the inner lines and adjusting opacity to 1, length to 4, thickness to 2, and offset to 2. This will give you a pretty standard crosshair, but you may notice that yours doesn't look the exact same as mine. You also need to disable firing error and movement error. Now you want to go to outer lines and you're going to disable these. Once you've done this, you will have the most standard crosshair in the game, and this is a pretty good one for learning. However, there is another crosshair I will recommend if you're struggling with moving and shooting. This one is a bit more difficult to set up manually, so for this you're going to want to go to import the same way that we did with the first one. Copy the crosshair code in the description and paste it into the import box. This one will give you these faint outer lines that will move in and out as you move. Now this is nice because it will tell you when you're standing still and good to shoot, which can be nice for the people who are brand new to the game, because in Valorant you cannot move and shoot at the same time, otherwise your accuracy goes all crazy. You need to make sure that you are at a complete stop whenever you are firing your weapon. Now the next thing that you might want to update is actually your sensitivity. This starting sensitivity is really fast. We're going to want to drop that down a bit. I'm going to drop mine down to 0.4 because my mouse's DPI is set to 800. DPI stands for dots per inch, and it basically just refers to your mouse's built-in sensitivity. The way the game calculates your sensitivity in-game is it basically multiplies your mouse's DPI by your in-game sensitivity to find what people refer to as your eDPI, or effective dots per inch. You can check your mouse's DPI by accessing the software that comes with each different mouse brand. So for example, if you have a Razer mouse, you want to check your DPI on Razer Synapse. If you have a Logitech mouse, you want to check on Logitech G Hub. And if you have a SteelSeries mouse, you will want to use the SteelSeries GG app. If you don't have a gaming brand mouse or you have one of the different brands, then you may want to Google it. But it is likely that you're probably on 800 DPI, as that is the standard. Now there are 2 other things that I want you to double check though, just to make sure that you're not making things harder than they need to be. Go down to your Windows search bar and search the word pointer. Then you'll click on change the mouse pointer display or speed. From there, make sure that enhanced pointer precision is unchecked and make sure that your speed is set to the 6th notch. This will help make sure that your mouse speed is standardized. Anyway though, if you are running at a different DPI, if your DPI is 1600, you should choose 0.2 sensitivity in-game, and if your DPI is 400, you should choose 0.8. Now that both of these things are set, we are almost done. Finally, you should go to general settings and change your map settings to this. This will make it so your map doesn't rotate, but it will also make it so that you can always see everything that is going on during a match. Cool. Now that we have that all done and we're through the initial tutorial, the game is going to throw you into a training scenario. This is a really cool way for the game to teach you the basics while introducing you to some pretty helpful mechanics. They teach you some good habits in this tutorial, as well as some pretty bad ones. For example, at the very start, you'll notice Brimstone has you walking up towards Garage because he says the enemies are listening. This is true in the real game as well. Your opponents will always be listening to everything you do, and walking can be really helpful to get the jump on your opponents. In Valorant, there is no sprint button, but you can run faster by switching to your knife. However, this will make a lot of noise, and if you want to mask your movements, you need to hold shift. Now this will make you completely silent. Valorant is a tactical shooter, and you don't really want to give your opponents any more heads up than you have to before you swing an angle. Brimstone actually instructs you a great way to take advantage of this, by having you walk up to the garage doors and then flash around the corner. The flash is going to be much more unexpected this way and more likely to catch your opponent off guard because you didn't make a ton of noise telling them you were going to do it beforehand. Now from this point you want to proceed with the tutorial, and once you get to the defensive half, we do have a bit of a warning. You can bug out the tutorial if you do these steps too fast, and it'll basically make it so you have to restart. So just try to wait for instructions from Sage and Brimstone before you do anything. Here's where some of the advice that they give you isn't perfect. You'll be instructed to throw a molly in the choke point to stall a push. Now this is good advice, and how you're supposed to use your stall utilities such as mollies. Abilities like this are excellent for blocking off choke points and preventing your opponents from pushing through for a short duration. However, you just want to be careful not to stand out in the open like this when you're using your utility, since you're very vulnerable if somebody peeks you. Instead, ideally you'd prefer to throw your molly off of a wall or even jump peek to expose yourself for as little time as possible. Afterwards, you'll be instructed to fall back, and again, they'll ask you to rotate through spawn rather than going through B. Now, while going through B might be considered riskier, it also provides a ton more value in this situation since it helps your team hold map control a bit more. These are just some small habits that we wanted to call out from the trading tutorial that you maybe don't want to build up, but overall, you should be pretty well equipped to hop into a match after doing this. Now, after finishing the tutorial, you should get an option to play a bot match, and this is actually your only opportunity to play versus bots, so we recommend that you take it. It will be a very little match, nothing too stressful, but it will show you how a game normally plays out. Now, after you finish the tutorial, you'll see that you have a lot to navigate around on the start screen. We want you to go up to agents and take a look at the current agent roster. Now, there are a dozen agents for you to choose from, but initially you'll only start out with 5. Those 5 agents are Sova, Jett, Phoenix, Brimstone, and Sage. Now, all these agents are great in their own right, but they all play a different role for the team. We discussed the agent roles a bit more in our beginner course, but it can be a good idea to take a look at each of these agents and see which one interests you. Quickly, when you start playing, you should be able to unlock new agents one by one, and it can be a good idea to scope out which ones sound cool so that you can hype yourself up to get them. It's also just helpful to know which agents are in the game, but honestly, you'll get more knowledge about the agents just from playing with them and watching them than you will from reading about them, so don't feel like you need to spend too much time here. Next, you can hit the big play button at the top of your screen. This will bring you to the lobby screen. From here, as a beginner, you have a few options. You can load into a custom game on pretty much any map if you want to explore the maps a bit. This is kind of a lot as a brand new player, so we don't really recommend it, but it is nice to know that it exists. You can also turn on cheats in these lobbies so that you can pause the match timer, have infinite abilities to practice with them, or even a couple of other things. Now, you can also access the practice range from the lobby screen, which will let you spawn bots and practice your shooting. This can be good if you're practicing a routine or you want to improve your aim quickly. From here, you can also test any agent in the game. This can also be a great way to explore the agents and which ones you might like. The practice tool is definitely underutilized by most players, so don't neglect it. Finally though, you can queue for multiple game modes from the lobby screen. We recommend as a beginner playing a lot of Swift Play and Team Deathmatch. Swift Play is more akin to an actual match, except it is a bit faster paced. Instead of the first to 13, it's the first to 5, and you'll have more money during the match to buy actual guns rather than having to save some rounds. What's also cool about Swift Play is that the people are generally pretty chill. I've had a lot of fun just queuing Swift Plays and messing around with the people that you meet in these lobbies. Genuinely, there are some pretty cool people to meet, and it's much less stressful than playing a full match. Now, if you want to play something as close to ranked as possible though, you'll have to queue unrated. Unrated is pretty much the exact same thing as a competitive match, but obviously not rated. You'll need to queue a bunch of matches either in Swift Play or Unrated or Team Deathmatch or whatever to eventually unlock competitive, so don't feel like you can't try them all. Now this is mostly just to prevent smurfing, which just refers to a high elo player playing on a new account to try to get into lower rated lobbies, but it does kind of suck for a newer player that you can't just hop straight into a competitive match. That being said, just try to enjoy the game right now. Find the agents that you like as we suggested, and try to land some shots. Now, one of the most difficult things to master in Valorant is of course going to be your aim. Basically, your entire journey is spent in Valorant trying to improve your aim, so a great place to start is by running some deathmatches. There are 2 different modes of deathmatch that you can try. The first one is called Deathmatch. It's just a traditional free-for-all played on all maps that you'll see in Unrated. In this game mode, you'll want to explore the maps and take duels on familiar angles. Lots of people prefer this game mode since it lets you have the most laid-back form of practice, and you can do this while listening to music or while watching something in the background. It's kind of just nice to get some reps in. In a normal game of Valorant, you may only take up to 20 to 30 fights in an hour. But in a single game of deathmatch, you could take dozens of gunfights. Now, there are some flaws with this game mode. People will often slow walk around the map, and you'll get third-partied a lot during fights, or shot in the back of the head, which kinda sucks. It's not actually the end of the world, like it's still good for practice and relatively fast-paced. And you can also drop in and out whenever you want, which is a nice touch. But most of the time in a real match of Valorant, all of your gunfights are going to be in front of you. So this form of deathmatch doesn't really simulate a real game super well. Oftentimes you'll be turning around and fighting enemies in weird places that you never normally see them in a normal game, like in your spawn. Alternatively, the other form is team deathmatch, which is actually pretty awesome. It warms you up with a bunch of different weapons, and it keeps all of your fights in front of you as you'd experience in a normal game. This also works in things like abilities to the game, as you'll have to deal with the potential of flashes and things like neon sliding out at you. Now, this is very similar to a real match and can be a great simulation for you to practice in. Again, though, it's not without its flaws. The maps that you play in Team Deathmatch are not the same as normal maps, so you'll be practicing angles that you'll never actually duel in a real game. Additionally, once you queue for a Team Deathmatch, you are locked into the game until it's complete, so sometimes this can kind of suck if you feel outskilled in a lobby or if you need to do something before the match is over. It's also worth mentioning that this can be a good place to test out agent abilities, though, just to see what they do. Now, if you're in a new game and you just unlocked a new agent, you might want to hop into a TDM just to give them a try and see how you can use their abilities in combat. Now, when you load into these game modes, whatever you choose, there are two main things you need to focus on if you want to improve as quickly as possible. The first is making sure that you are standing still before you shoot. This is one of the biggest learning curves in the game for new players. You can't just move and shoot in Valorant, it will make you wildly inaccurate. This is why that crosshair that we recommended earlier can be nice. Use this as you walk around in deathmatch or swift play, and make sure that anytime you take a gunfight, you are at a full stop. The next thing that you should be practicing, though, is making sure that you are only consistently firing in bursts. Did you notice in the tutorial when Brimstone has you shoot the target, there is a ton of recoil on the guns? The thing with recoil in Valorant is that it's not actually even predictable. It's got a lot of RNG to it, and the best way to control that RNG is to only shoot a few bullets at a time. You want to focus on burst firing, and then in between those bursts, when you're waiting for your gun to reset, you want to strafe to the left or to the right to keep yourself mobile. This is the main gameplay loop of Valorant. Burst, strafe, burst, strafe, burst. Now, if you're able to practice this right from the start, by the time that you're able to queue for competitive, you will be way ahead of the competition. Now, either way, if you are truly serious about improving at Valorant, then be sure to check out that link in the description below to take advantage of our exclusive discount on SkillCapped.com today. Now, if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while using our service, you are going to get your money back. There's no questions asked, meaning that you have absolutely everything to gain and nothing to lose. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we will see you in the next one.